All right, everybody. It's Friday at noon, and that means it's Q&A with Alan and Marshall, but without Marshall. I'm Alan Howe with Easy Way. Marshall Atkinson is actually detained right now by movers. He is being evicted from his house only because he bought another one. And so his family is in the process of moving right now. So, of course, who is our safety net every time Marshall and I cannot do something? We have Mr. Richard Greaves with us. So, Richard, thank you again for saving our bacon.
Alan, show networking, isn't that one of our last topics? Are we flagging here? Okay, that's just a preview.
And this is what happens when Alan runs.
We were having a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about books. What should I read on the airplane?
Yeah.
We'll get back to that later.
But Richard, thank you so much for coming in. How's your week been?
It's been busy. My girlfriend Gina has been sick, so I've been doing a lot of nursemaiding.
Yep.
But just doing a lot of work. Busy.
And you and I were just in a meeting with the Academy, and you know what? I don't know, Richard, this was a great meeting, I thought. Now it's just up to us to put some things in place. And yeah, we'll talk about that only as it applies to Long Beach coming up. And, you know, a lot of Academy members, and, you know, we're not untouchable. Everybody needs to know them.
Well, I noticed here that Sean is called me a bacon saver. There's only one way to save bacon, and that's to lean back and eat it as fast as possible.
Well, and Richard has saved our bacon 1,000 times when I'm out of town or one of us can't make it, or the one time where it is 5 minutes to go and Marshall is not answering a text and he's not logged in. And I immediately call Dad, help Richard again. But yeah, he saves our bacon all the time. So we got some people watching.
Who's got questions?
Yeah, so this is a Q&A. We want to thank everybody that's listening and watching. If you are watching, please let us know. This is live. We need your questions, but also share it with your friends because we want them. I saw Richard the stats for 2022, and on our audio podcast, we had a ton of them that were downloaded from other countries after they were posted. I mean, from India, from Pakistan and stuff. So it was great. But that's because of people sharing. So please share and help us let other people know. And if you have a question, let us know. We'll try our best to help you out. Let's say hi to some people, Richard, and we'll get going then. So, of course, always first in line, Cindy always posts before the show starts. So, Cindy out of Texas, thank you so much. And as we said, Sean out of Alpharetta, Georgia. Sean, are you going to the Long Beach show next week? I hope.
No, Sean said no.
And then Charles from New Mexico. Hopefully, Charles will see you there. I don't know if you're able to go. But, yeah. And we got Tracy, good morning from Arkansas. And Tracy, we had a lot of downloads out of Arkansas too. So maybe that was you. So thank you for watching.
For me, Arkansas has always been the forgotten state. It's so beautiful. It's in the South. It just never mentioned. It doesn't have the reputation, but what a great place to live. I loved the time that I spent in Arkansas.
I have heard that. I've only been into like Jonesboro on the other side of Memphis a little bit. And I haven't been through the whole state, but I know, you know, our friend Bill Wayner lives there and just gorgeous pictures. I know people from Fayetteville and up in the northern section, and it's just incredible. So, yeah, I'm slightly jealous. I probably should move there. But yeah, not probably right at Forgotten State. Huh. Sean says, unfortunately, not able to attend. Charles is not going. Basketball season, have to finish outfitting 30 teams by next weekend. Well, that you should have that done tomorrow, I would think.
Hoorah!
Yeah, exactly. So got to do business. So while we're here, let's pay some bills. Let's make sure I can get that up. We want to also thank, of course, our sponsor, Graphic Solutions. They do a great job for us. And if you need to go check them out, don't know about them, here's a little highlight.
GSG, the combination of over half a century of knowledge with industry-leading technology and the customer at the center of everything that we do. Graphic Solutions Group is a powerhouse distributor of traditional screen, sign, wide format digital printing, embroidery, and textile decorating. We are committed to our customers, providing support, educational, and consulting services. Your success is our success. We've seen these industries grow and change in our 70 years. One thing never changes: GSG's dedication providing the best products and services available. We've been around, we'll be around, from the highs and the lows, standing right here with you. GSG, the right products, right away.
All right. Thank you, GSG. I love that video, man. They do a great job there with their video production. And, they're growing. They're going to be at Long Beach. I'm looking forward to seeing what they have.
I was talking to Mark Sildonic the other day, and that's basically what he's doing on a regular basis. He probably makes 2 videos a day now.
Absolutely.
A job I would love to have.
Yeah.
So.
And they do a great job. Now, he also runs the applications lab. He's always, but I think everything he's testing, he's making a video for it. And, that's what we're all about, Richard. I know you have been doing this longer than Marshall I have. You've always been about the education. And even when you were running shops, you were all about educating your people and stuff and pushing an envelope for them, which we'll talk about too. Okay. And so I still think that is still our passion and a lot of people's. Here's the other thing, Richard. I was just down with our friend Brian Walker in New Philadelphia, Ohio, from Inkjet Technologies, which makes the Viper pre-treater and pre-treatment solutions and RTP apparel. I was with him, and I actually recorded 2 interviews with him and Dean. And, they have a nice setup there, and talk about some young guys in the industry, not screen printing, but in direct to garment, that are really, just upping the education game. And I think that's stuff you and I can get behind all the time. So education is still number one still. And GSG does a great job of that. And I think Mark Sildonic has hundreds of videos that he's done, short snippet ones.
He said he's doing 2 a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Cindy says has the customer coming in, so I have to go. You could watch it with your customer, the show. That'd be cool. But Cindy, got to do work. So thank you as always. We got Chris from up in Canada. So Chris, thank you so much, early. So cool. Richard, what's your week been like? What have you been talking? Who have you been talking to? Anything new going on? Or
I have 2 factories that I'm supervising their construction. So it's been a lot of arguing with the electric company. And some construction workers did not follow my instructions, and they built a screen room where they wanted to, according to the architectural drawing, even though I had marks on the floor. So just, the usual
stuff. Yeah, and that's a little difficult because I know one of them is close to where you live in a metro area, but I believe one of them is out of state too. So that's going to be a little different, right?
Yep. Well, got to keep busy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and these are not small jobs for you. We were just talking about it. His ears were burning. We were talking about it. Mr. Mark Sildonic. How you doing, man? So, yeah. Well, Richard, let's go on. We have a couple topics, and I'm kind of excited about these, a little bit. Um, and because you're always filling in, it's a little bit geared towards you. So
Ah,
I get to listen and learn. So the first one we talked about, this is something that I came up with, um, cap film for today's market. So for those of you who are screen printers and are not familiar with capillary film, um, it's not an old school process. It's extremely viable. And I just think it doesn't get enough attention. Um, I mentioned it briefly last week or 2 weeks ago. I was talking to Shane Mackey from Screenprinting, who uses a lot of cap film. We were talking one night, and he wants to get some better use out of it. And I believe he's going to give you a call, Richard, because you are the master of it. So I know you are always a big cap film proponent with your shops, and still are. I need to push it more because it is viable, and it's a lot more economical now than it was, say, 20 years ago. But this question that I had coming up was talking about some people calling it face coating or piggybacking cap film. So I'm going to let you go, Richard. Let's talk about cap film, but it's also called direct film. So those words are interchangeable. Cap film is a short term for capillary. But yeah, let's talk about cap film for today's market in screen making.
capillary film is a brand name, and I'm pretty sure it was Autotype that called their film cap film or capillary film. Yolano had a product called CDF, which is again a capillary film. But the difference between indirect film and direct film is where it's processed. And so you expose and process direct film when it's directly on the mesh already. Whereas indirect film, it's just a piece of film. It looks like photographic film, and you process it, in a vacuum frame, putting a negative or a positive in a frame. You expose it, and then you tray develop it, and then when it's finished developing and it's just the stencil, you apply it to the mesh, position it where you'd like it to go. Pre-registration is not so easy that way.
Right.
But then when it's dry, you peel the backing film, because it is just a regular liquid emulsion. It's not exactly the same kind that you get in a bucket, but it's basically the same direct emulsion that you buy in a bucket that is pre-coated on polyester sheets. Right. So the benefit is that it feels like a fruit roll-up. It is exactly the same thickness every single time, and it's smooth as a piece of vinyl. So when you rub your finger across it, there's no texture. One of the downsides to direct emulsion, liquid emulsion, is that the water has to evaporate, and it's about 60% water instead of the 6 or 7% water that you have with direct film, because you pour water. I say pour. What happens when you spray water from a spray hose at mesh? It goes right through because the mesh has holes in it. Yep. So I've always taught pouring water. So you've got one of those big gulp cups or something like that you pour water. And when the water sheets, you count to 10, because you want the most amount of water and you want the same amount of water every single time. But now if the water's wet, in the olden days, we used to have postage stamps that you lick the stamp and then you put it on an envelope. Now, of course, we got the sticky stamps that you just peel off of back, self-adhesive. But imagine it was a postage stamp where you licked the envelope and made it wet, and when you put the dry stamp on it, or the dry piece of direct film, it loves the water.
Yep.
You know that when you're spraying out a screen that you've exposed, you want to dissolve, and that's the most important word for anybody to remember in screen making. Does it dissolve, or didn't it dissolve?
Yep.
So you want it to dissolve just a wee little bit, just in the surface, because it's basically dry. It's basically 6% or 94 dry. And then all you do is you wet it a little bit. It softens up. You don't want to dissolve. Just softens up a little bit. As the great Gene Fortwinkel wrote, wetter the better.
Yep.
So there's only so much water that the mesh can hold, and it begins to leak out after about 10 seconds. So that's why if you pour the water, when it stops rippling, you got about 10 seconds, I say, for it always to have the same amount of water, and then you get the same basis of adhesion. It will move into the mesh a little bit. So then you wipe off the excess water that may be around, because you don't want any drips. Those pesky drips can ruin your beautiful screen.
Yep.
But you don't want to be pushing with a window squeegee, never a screen printing squeegee. But you wipe the water droplets off, and it really doesn't matter if there's water droplets on the polyester side, because they can't get anywhere anyway.
Yep.
What you don't want to do is you don't want to push them into the mesh. You don't want to push the film into the mesh. Maybe set it a little bit, but not give it that screen printing push that you want to do to make that white ink go through the mesh. So then how long do you have to wait? Well, you don't have to wait while 60% or 40% of the moisture in the direct emulsion for it to evaporate and be dry, because you're in a hurry. It goes on, and I promise you it will be dry, really dry, in 20 minutes in a dry room that has a relative humidity of less than 40%, let's say, because it will evaporate quickly and it's dry.
Right. And, we got some comments here. Of course, we talked about this. Shane Mackey says, looks like a good one. So got some meetings this morning, but can't wait to watch this afterwards. That's who I was talking to last week, who gave me the idea for this topic. So Shane, make sure you get a hold of Richard.
I know Shane. Every time I've ever gone to Atlantic City show, Shane's always there.
Our good friend Glenn Shull, who's with Rico Printing Services on there. Glenn, thanks for joining us. And while Glenn is a digital guy primarily now, I remember Glenn when he worked at Joseph Podger. I worked at J Products, and I actually confessed to Glenn that he was kind of my inspiration on how I write inks or how I write articles back in the day. So those of you that know Glenn from his time at NASDAR Digital and at Rico, just remember the man is a screen print guru also. So Glenn, thanks a lot for joining us. Ray Greenwood, numerous studies in dry environments without removing the backside water film for cap film, the emulsion will continue to soak in, recess into the screen. This reduces EOM. So thank you, Ray. Cora, good morning from Wisconsin. Have a meeting. Want to check in and watch later. Thank you very much, Cora. And it's a good day, everybody. Our buddy Ron Goodwin.
All right, Ron.
Ron, it's been a while. Hope you're doing well and having a great new year.
We'll see you in Long Beach next week.
Yep. Ray says, hello, Glenn. Glenn says, thanks. So, yeah.
So behind or earlier in those comments.
Oh, here. And we got another. I missed some. I'm sorry about that.
Yes, Sean says, what does capillary mean?
Yep, absolutely.
So, capillary has to do with capillary action.
And Glenn also says the water does the work.
That's what the great Gene Fortwinkel also was meaning, that the water literally does all the work for you, and you don't have to use that much water. But capillary is the form of absorption, that it will go against gravity, that it can go up in the proper method. So here's where you can actually draw water up in a straw, that idea. So it's definitely something that's easy to Google. So it just means absorption. I demonstrate capillary action by using a brown paper towel. So you wet a screen and you put a brown paper towel on it. You can practice that way just to get the idea. That's my initial training. When I teach somebody, I do the first one. You wet the screen, you take a brown paper towel, and you see the water get absorbed up into the brown paper towel because it changes color. Hello. And that's the great signal. That's what you're looking for the film to do. Pull the water out of where it's staying in the whole innings of the mesh.
Absolutely. I think, I learned capillary film by the late great Al Pezzi,
Now,
and
Betsy.
man, the godfather of emulsion and cap film. Man, he taught most of the Midwest. Him, Gene Fortweiler, and of course Neil Bolding was very instrumental in my early years with Autotype on there. But Al was so great; he taught me how to coat emulsions, and then we would, with like 24 screens, keep coating them, and then we rinsed them all off, degreased them, and then the wet screens immediately after degreasing showed me how to apply capillary film right away. And that's the other advantage too. You're done reclaiming, it's degreased, it's wet, it's sheeting right there. You're coating it right away. And as it's drying, your stencil's drying already. So very, very cool on that. Now, Richard, when it comes to capillary, what is piggybacking? Explain what that is, or face coating the other side with direct emulsion.
Well, perhaps you might have some problems with durability. I have never had problems with durability. I have a famous story that I've told a million times about when I was first using direct film and direct emulsion. My representative for Autotype was the great Susan Vanel.
Yep,
and
amazing.
I remember that I called her up and I was complaining about capillary film and saying that it wasn't lasting long enough. And she, of course, wanted to know, what the real problem was. And we discussed it for about 10 minutes. And then I somehow let it slip that, after 70,000 prints, it was breaking down. And there was another 10 to 15 seconds of silence. And the scream that came from Chicago to Milwaukee, you didn't need a telephone to hear it. And she screamed out 70,000 prints. Then I guess there were some pirate oaths that she'd learned as a screen printer. She came from a screen printing family, and she explained it to me later on when I met her later in person. So I've never had a problem with screens breaking down because they were direct film or direct emulsion.
Right.
But if you want the most durable screen, don't use water, use direct emulsion. It's wet. It will not dry as fast because you have to wait for the direct emulsion. So that I love overnight. That's the only one that I really ever recommend, because people want to get it out in 45 minutes or can I do it in just an hour? Sure, you can, but that's not a way for durability. You want durability? Let the stencil dry overnight. But if you coat with the direct emulsion and then put capillary film on the bottom, you will have that superior, super smooth direct film on the bottom, especially for graphics printers that are printing on a smooth piece of glass, metal, or plastic. Textile people, the RZ number is just not as important because our shirts have a horrible, rough RZ value. So that's lost on it. But if you want to print really good halftones, direct emulsion will never, 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 how many times did I say never? Never, never, never give you as good a stencil or a good a print as little Jennifer, 5 years old, throwing a piece of direct film onto the mesh.
Yep.
Also, it doesn't require any real training, and it doesn't require any cleanup. So I want you to all think of me later tomorrow or next Monday when you're cleaning your trough coater. Think of Richard and say, you don't have to do that. You could be using direct film instead.
Yeah.
Faster dry times and no cleanup.
I think the other thing too with direct film or cap film, the technology has been increased so much from when we started with the CDFs, the Capital X from Autotype now. The technology has come so much where they're faster exposing. They're still easy to apply, but the cost per sheet has become very comparable with direct emulsion. And that is because capillary film used to be a little bit more expensive. You almost had to buy into it and see the benefits. But now it is equal price with direct emulsion too. And it's something that I think gets overlooked a lot. and it shouldn't be, because it is an incredible product. There, what now you have a couple things you have to know is, one, what are your mesh counts, because there is different thicknesses of it. Whether it's in the microns and stuff, and you don't want to get it too thin of capillary film and put it on an 86 mesh. You're going to want something that's thicker for your 86s, your 110s. And if you're up into the electronics and membrane switch, you're going to need a very thinner one. So you're going to want to know that. But I know Yolano has Easy Film, which is for the textile industry. Murakami has them. But Yolano Kiwo, which is sold by GSG, our sponsor, is a great one. And it's an incredible product. And I just think it's just not demonstrated enough. So maybe, Mr. Saldonic, that might be something that you do in your app lab on one of your videos. It would be a great one.
I know that one of the last products I worked on when I was the product manager at Yolano, before I was retired because of my stroke, but was the Easy Film. And the slogan that we came up with is, let us do your coding for you.
Yep.
Because the price was the whole point. And we worked on several experiments to try and coat direct film onto Tyvek or a piece of paper, rolls of paper, just a way to get it down cheaper and cheaper. But polyester was still the way to go,
yep,
even though it's a lot more expensive than Tyvek or paper.
Yep, incredible. We got a lot of people that we need to say hi to. Keith from California, good to see you, Keith. I'm sure we'll see you next week.
Yep, definitely see him at the big luncheon or the dinner on Friday night for Shirt Lab.
Yep, Peter, who's going to be there, of course, with M&R, and they got a lot going on, so make sure you stop by the M&R booth, say hi to Peter. Dean from Inkjet Technologies. Dean, I had a great time with you a couple days ago with you and Brian. And Dean says, I think I prefer Richard with the money background. I mean, bread is slang for money, so I guess it fits. So
well, I've got the bread because that's supposed to reproduce exposure, how exposure works its way through from one side to the other. And here, this is only partially cured bread. It's got that nice crust. You want the crust all the way through. So it's an exposure analogy.
Yeah. All right. John from Richmond, Indiana. Hey, guys. Busy, but got you guys on. Thanks a lot, John. So we got coming down here. And, of course, our buddy Ray. The name and term comes from the fact that the movement is similar to the action that blood moves through your capillaries, which are small veins. It uses surface tension of the liquid on the surface. So, thank you.
So I think capillary is a distraction. If you have to explain what capillary is, it's capillary film. No, the film soaks up water like a brown paper towel.
Yep. Ron Goodwin, Al Petsy, in your own shop and your own conditions, and that was something.
Oh yeah.
Even back then, we're talking in the 80s. Ron was going, your shop, your conditions. No shops are the same. So yeah, Al was a gem, man. He was great. So hope you got that. Another one right there. In industrial electronics, squeegee side coated, aside from durability, cap backing emulsion, is used to create a smoother surface. It reduces squeegee pressure and allows the harder, more precise squeegee. Very good. So how does that with textile translate that to textile, Richard, with the squeegee in textile on it? Because with cap film, you're actually coating just one side.
Yes. So Ray is he's talking about industrial electronic printing, in which a lot of it has to do with about the exact deposition of whatever, let's say, conductive material that you're printing. So it's a much more sophisticated way to make a stencil. You've got more control when you're using direct film instead of direct emulsion, again, because of the evaporation factor. Right. A lot of people that may use a direct film, they'll get a perfect half-tone circle on the bottom. But remember that the mesh is the opening on the squeegee side, and that's not good because now what you're literally creating is a funnel shape when you print with direct emulsion, that you get a funnel shape. So you may be pushing a wider dot higher up on the inside of the screen and then forcing it down into a little hole.
Yep.
So it's not that perfect cylinder that we see in the screen printing magazines or illustrations of what a perfect halftone is. So
yep.
Face coating the inside is something that we do in electronics and functional printing to make sure that we get the smoothest or the most complete stencil that we're printing through. So the hole is more like a drilled hole than something that looks like an explosion to the inside of the screen.
When using a backing emulsion, Richard, on cap film, would you recommend sharp edge or a round edge?
It depends on what kind of ink deposit that you're looking for. When you're printing on glass, metal, or plastic, there's no absorption. So getting a huge deposit is not that important. So there are sharper edge works.
Correct.
I believe that if people paid more attention to speeding up the speed of your squeegee, something we're supposed to talk about later on, but
yep.
the speed of the squeegee, printing fast, is what screen ink is supposed to do. It's supposed to flow fast because you're moving the blade fast.
Yep, absolutely. Ray says, I have clients like D2 and Tucson uses technique for t-shirt printing as well as very high resolution textile work. And I have been in there in the D2 and yeah, they are doing some incredible stuff. Glid Shaw says, as we moved into higher mesh tension, dropped off contact and squeegee pressure, cap film gave us a sharper image. Absolutely. 100% right there. So, so we're going to move to another subject, but I think the last word on cap film is, let's make sure if you're looking for something, you want to up your screen shop on there, you might want to take a look at that. It's something to look at. If you're going to be at the show, talk to the guys at Kibo, Yolano, or at GSG, and Richard, you're going to be there hanging out. Oh, yeah. So,
Autotype, Chromaline,
Murakami,
Murakami, they all make
Kibo, Yolano
cap films.
Absolutely. So very good.
Murakami, when I ran a factory in California, that's what we had. We had great support from those people out there in California. But of course, Yolano is who invented direct film.
Are they? That I did not know. And I love that you started
talking. Gotta get a plug in for the old alma mater.
And I love that you talked about indirect film too, where that's something that's gone way by the wayside, where you're processing it either in water or solvent in the trays. And actually we applied it with either a solvent or water. A lot of sign shops would do that. And, people, the brand names were things like Blue Poly, Yolano Cut Green, 5-Star from Autotype was a big one. So,
well, knife cut films, if you wanted to do bananas, 59 cents for a grocery store sign, you didn't use a photographic emulsion. You had a guy with a razor blade who cut out the word bananas and quick applied that knife cut film. That's again where masking film came from. That's where direct film came from. All those films came from knife cut stuff.
But the technology moved into capillary films, and so it's always moving. And while cap film is, I think it's just not talked about, and it's a very viable process that needs to be talked about again. So great. So because of that, you were always, when you were running shops, Richard, and still, you're always encouraging people to push the envelope in production. And you and I were talking, I mean, some of the best stories you've had, Richard Greaves, that I have seen in seminar and stuff are about you just trying to push the envelope almost. And you mentioned one with Sue Vanel going 70,000 on cap film. Oh my gosh. I can see Sue going, what the stinking are you doing? You are complaining what they recommend.
It's like going into saying, gee, my tires ran out after, that my tires went bad after 100,000 miles. These are bad tires. So
Yeah, exactly. So that's
make a new
incredible.
screen. Make a new screen. What do you?
Right. Yeah, that's what she said. Make a new screen. But I remember asking Sue about that one time, and she just shook her head. It's like she didn't even want to talk about it again when you did that. So, and you have to know Sue. So great. I miss her terribly. Sue's still with us. She's alive. Her and Tomas are retired comfortably, and yeah, but we do miss them. So always pushing the envelope in production, and that is something no matter what. Whether you're in digital, you're in screen, you're in direct to garment, you need to always be trying to push the envelope. How can you do better? How can you do faster? That 1% every day. And Richard, you were kind of a master at that, almost to your own detriment at times, where suppliers, because you worked very closely with them and you would be brutally honest with them on there. So talk about, and my favorite, I'm going to blow the whistle on you, is you testing an ink with Rutland. You had a shop with multiple automatics, and they said, "This is great, Richard. Can you run it through the paces?" Absolutely. And your report back to him was, "Yeah, it printed for crap. Why are you sending me this?"
And
they said,
they innocently said, "Oh, well, you have to slow down the press, so that it prints better." And just the idea, the mental idea of slowing down a press and going against the way screen printing inks should actually be run. So there was no, and there's the expensive word, thixotropic index, the idea that ink is thick, and then when you move it, the temporary bonds that are built into the internal tack of the ink allow it to flow. And yes, it'll flow inside the screen, but I want to flow through the little holes. If it doesn't flow through the holes, what's the purpose of that ink? This is why, for instance, house paint does not work very well as a screen printing ink, because it doesn't sort of cap itself off. It doesn't stop flowing when you stop moving it. Otherwise, all the ink would flow like milk through the holes. So there's a real viscosity change that should happen with a true screen printing ink. So they told me to go slower, and sorry, it failed the Richard test immediately. But for instance, go ahead.
I think your exact terms were, "Why would I want to slow down my automatics? Redo your ink."
going slow. So the way that I actually met Rich Hoffman way back in the very, very, very early 80s when he was a technician for Advance, that's how I met him. I had actually met him at the factory. He used to do electric work for his dad, who was the electrician at Advance, but he was strictly a guy helping out. Mm-hmm. And then when he became part of their tech crew, I always went, "Oh no, I want Rich Hoffman. I want Rich Hoffman to do my service work." But I would rather wait to get Rich to do it than have one of the other guys come out right away. But I was having problems with the printing press, and that's because I had discovered how to change the high speed on the potentiometers on the controller boards of the DC motors, something I was not supposed to be doing, but I understood how things were going, and I was taking the motors up in voltage so that they would go faster. The trouble is that shorted out the contactors inside the electric motor. And so Rich was actually able to figure that out. And then he did a voltage test, and he went, "Uh-oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well," and he told me that you should limit that to 90 volts. Any more than that, and you start to burn up the motors. So he put the governor on it. There was a limit to the thing that I was overriding. But we tuned up the presses so they were running it all at 90 volts, not the 60, 70, 80, because I would rather replace the motors than go slow. But 90 was what we settled on. That would definitely be pushing the envelope to print faster.
And Richard, before we get into another way of how you always were pushing the envelope, I'd love to hear from people listening. Tell me how in your shop or in your business, how you're always trying to push the envelope, and should we that 1% better, whether it's in sales, whether it's in marketing, or whether it's in production. How are you pushing the envelope to become 1% better every day on there? So, and Richard, this was something that you would do not just in your own time, but with your people also in training them, correct?
I think authors have written about this, that the lazy man, get the lazy man to figure out a way to do things faster or easier. My father was open, because he'd say, no, I tell Richard that it can't be done, and then in a couple of days it happens. So I was pushed that way to figure out different ways to skin that cat, or whatever. But there were methodologies for doing faster production that were just part of my home life. I don't really know how I developed that discomfort with doing things that you could just see this is a sloppy way. There's only thing worse than seeing something done poorly is to see it done slowly also.
Yeah.
So the idea of the construction work that I did before I came to screen printing, whereas you'd see people that they'd need 40 boards that were exactly 8 foot 2 inches long, and so they'd create a jig. And so you weren't measuring each one and drawing a line on it. You made a jig, you pushed it up, and boom, you cut it off. You pushed it into the jig, you cut it off. And this is what led me, for instance, to pre-registration in the early 80s, before we worked on the tri-lock system that was developed when I actually was working with Joe Clark at M&R. The tri-lock was part of that scheme. Rich Hoffman and I introduced it at a printwear show.
Yep.
I'm forgetting which it was. It was Denver, maybe, something like that. So long ago.
Indianapolis was the big one, the big printwear show.
I'm not remembering, but the tri-lock is something that I had pins that I put into my yokes of my printing press. So I started out with a little tiny C clamp, so I could push the screen in, push it to the left until it hit a C clamp. And so I had C clamps hanging down from, hanging on the press. And that's how I did this quick speed bump. Push it all the way to the left, all the way forward, and boom, it was pre-registration. I created a pre-registration system with a center line and a neckline. All the platens had to be in exactly the same position. So I had a thing that looked like a hockey stick that went to the center shaft of the printing press and came out, and I would, if the platens had to be loosened or changed, I would put the hockey stick down, pull it out, so they were exactly in the same distance. I was famous in my early consulting career for using a measurement stick. So I'd have a tape measure and know that it was exactly 8 foot 2 inches from the center of the press to where the end of the platen was. And then what would I do? I would write it on the ceiling or write it on the wall. I'd get on a ladder and write 82 inches on the ceiling. And so you never forget. What's the distance? The little shortcuts like that, because if you have to ask or look up something more than once or twice, it belongs in an FAQ. It belongs in a standard operating procedure. Did I mention 2-second lean yet in this broadcast?
You just did.
I know. So
what now you also, when counting shirts, everybody counts in dozens. What did you have your people do?
I love you for remembering that.
Yep.
I stopped people counting in dozens. I did this in the very first place I ever worked, Eder Manufacturing. I consulted with Cy Cohen, my mentor, for a guy who dragged me into the screen printing business. And I said, why are we doing this in dozens? What is the dozen? Because if you take 17 stacks of 12 plus 4 other shirts over here, how many shirts do you have? You got to get the calculator out.
Yeah,
and
abacus.
But if you have 17 stacks of 10 plus 4 shirts, how many shirts have you got?
74.
And everybody can do that in their head. And it took a while, and it confused a lot of people when the shirts would come in, but it's been my way ever since 1981.
And that is something I think more shops should probably do, is move that into a unit of 10. We got some people that have been responding, and I've been lax on this. So back to capillary film. Mark Soldonic says, I always face coat the inside when using cap film. Smoother surface leads to faster squeegee stroke, especially when printing high density. Especially with high density, I would use a cap film. Chris Hurley Molds, that's something I think you need to look at. I know you do a lot of direct film or a lot of high density, and your coating, and it's great, but it might be something to look at. Which requires much lower mesh counts, eliminating rough surface and squeegee wear. So yeah, absolutely, Mark. Ray says exactly what I'm speaking of, Mark Saldonic. The same technique is also used with all direct emulsion using thin emulsions. And that would be what we're called backing emulsions, but you use a thinner coat. Yes, we can match and beat cap film daily, but with exact to the micron EOM. So,
and let me interject.
Go ahead.
I absolutely respect what Mark and Ray Greenwood have just discussed, but they're talking about the higher end of the most sophisticated screens, which a lot of people don't actually need.
Correct.
And I don't mean to be saying that I don't love those, because everybody knows how extreme I feel about screen making.
Yep.
That's ultra high tension and direct film. But the idea that people that want to speed things up, direct film is absolutely a way to go. That if you're printing anything under 1,000 units and you're printing what I consider to be regular t-shirt printing stuff, you're not going to need what Mark was just talking about. So unless you're doing something very specific, when you're doing high density, you've got to spend a lot of time to make that perfect screen. Right. And that's a time-consuming process, and that's where it's worthwhile to spend an overnight making a really good, super dried, super well-made stencil.
Right.
So, but again, that's for high density. You're printing 42 shirts, or 142 shirts, or 1,000 shirts. The fact that you can make your screens and turn around a whole set of screens in under 20 minutes is what I'm talking about. Real speed and lean thinking.
Yep. What else we have right here? Team Biscayne says, that's the money, Richard. Dropping the knowledge to save you time and money. And that's what knowledge is. You know, if it doesn't help you save time and money, then it's just fluff. It doesn't matter on there. Glenn says, I use larger screens, 2536 instead of 2331, was able to increase squeegee speed with it. Absolutely. And we have Frank from SNS. So Frank, thanks a lot for joining us.
Frank.
Hey, while we were talking cap film and all these things, I did not pick a product to do, but you know, if you need cap film and want to know more, our sponsor, Graphic Solutions, you can go to gogsg.com. You know, there is a zillion videos and education from everything from embroidery to sign to textile. But if you need cap film and want to try it, talk to them. They have the Elano Easy Film. They have Kiwo products. You also want to make sure your screens are important on there. I am going to be doing a workshop for Shirt Lab, but your screens are equipment. They're the most important thing. And so one of the things with cap film too is you got to be degreasing. You want that sheeting action, and it's more than just a cheap degreaser. You're going to want a wetting agent, something there. And Graphic Solutions Group has all that. Get a hold of Mark Soldonic, one of their technical people, and they can help you out there. We're going to do a little plug right now. I'm for Shirt Lab. I am doing a seminar on the 26th called Screens Are Equipment. And this is something that I have been passionate about, that, you know, I love new technology of presses and direct to screen and autocoders and dryers and all that stuff. But none of that matters if your screens are crap. If you treat, I think a lot of times screens have been treated as commodities, and they're not. You treat your screens as commodities, and that process as commodities, they're going to frustrate you, and you're going to be, that sucking sound's going to, you hear, is losing money and time. Treat your screens as equipment, and they're going to make you money and increase your production. And we're going to do a workshop on it, about an hour and a half. screens or equipment, you can go to Shirt Lab Tribe. If you're not a member, sign up for that. I guess there's about 20 people already signed up, so thank you. So that's my little shameless plug there. Moving on, this is all about education, which Richard, you and I are passionate about. That's what we do. That's what Richard does. That's what Marshall does. So the next thing is we have a show next week. A lot of people are going to be there. You're going to be there. I'm going to be there. Marshall's going to be there. GSG is going to be there. Dean is going to be, or Dean's not going to be there, but Brian from iJet Technology is going to be there. So this is the place. It's going to be a big show, but we are all about education seminars. So we are going to give you our pick for the seminars that you need to take. So Richard,
we're kind of limited. We're kind of limited as to what screen printing seminars there are. It's not exactly a huge choice like it was in the olden days.
Yeah. So when we talk about the olden days, you know, when I first met Richard, he was one of the premier speakers. And the only time we got information was through magazines like Screenprint Magazine, Impressions. And when you did a seminar and it was Glenn Shull and Richard Greaves, James Erdelani, Mark Coudray, guys like that. I mean, Richard, you told me about seminars you did in conjunction with someone else where they had to be moved to a ball room where there were 500 people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, while Richard and I have known each other through there, it shows I couldn't even get near it. He was so busy and stuff. Now, that was a different time and place, but education is
you have the
important.
internet then.
Yep. But education, live education is still important. And there are some, especially pertaining to screen printing, excuse me, that we're pretty excited about. We think people should look at. And what ones do you are you suggesting?
Well, we've got three major things that I think people should pay attention to. Marshall Atkinson is doing a seminar with Davis Schlegel about direct-to-film processing.
Yep.
It's a hot subject. Every time I say direct-to-film, I also have to say that Dr. Ray Work,
Yep,
who was intimately involved with this sort of thing, has warned everybody that the dust from the adhesives that you're putting on is very dangerous, that you need to be using a mask if you have any exposed dusting of your direct-to-film. So you're going to hear that from me every single time I say direct film. But I think it's a seminar that you should really think about doing. If you're thinking about going into direct film, it's definitely where you should spend your money. Kevin Kuth is doing 2 seminars, and our friend Charlie Talbleed is doing 3
5
workshops. I think they're workshop quality.
two workshops, 3 seminars.
Ooh, okay. So 5 things that Charlie's doing. But that's about it. Those are the screen printing things, even though the DTF is not screen printing. Now, if you're interested in embroidery and stuff like that, those are other facets that you can see. Eric Campbell, I know.
Absolutely.
Eric Campbell is always worthwhile seeing an Eric Campbell seminar.
Yep. There are, and you know what? Kevin Koth from Chromaline, you would see him on Instagram as the emulsion guru. He's doing screen printing basics and then screen making basics, then screen making advanced automation. That could be, they're back to back. What a great 2-part there. So
I know that in the past, I did the same thing that Kevin's doing now, and I never really understood it because Impressions wanted me to do, a beginning and an advanced. And what's really different about advanced screen making is the equipment, and mostly it's instrumentation.
Yep.
So I'm sure Kevin's going to be talking about coding machines and automatic reclaiming, that sort of thing. But it's also the measuring instruments. That's what makes screen making advanced. Go.
What did our friend Jeff McHugh say?
He's the one who quoted that. Yes.
Yep. What's the difference between an advanced screen maker and a beginning one? All about the tools. So, yeah. So if you can't, and we've said it before, if you can't measure it, you can't control it. And it's all about that. In the seminar I do, 5 Fundamentals, which I will be teaching that again here coming up, Richard. In March, I'm going to be doing 5 Fundamentals again at the One Stop Open House.
Oh.
So, yeah. I'm very excited about that.
What town is that going to be in? I forget
Grand
the
Rapids.
name.
In Grand Rapids, Michigan. So, yeah.
I may take the drive across. To heck, I'm going to sit in the front row.
So it's a big joke. Is one time when I was new speaking, of course, Richard, I've known him forever. He's a mentor of mine. And, I was just starting, and then all of a sudden here comes Richard, walks in and sits him back. And all I had to think is, 1, don't wet yourself. 2, just keep talking. Just keep being you. Always, when the people you respect come in. And, but, you have to learn to just put on your big boy pants.
I know that several of my friends, Glenn Schull, Lon Winters, have said, could you not come to my seminar? And it's done in an affectionate way, because I've had several seminars where I've had Mark Coudray in the front row, and all of a sudden, every word I'm about to say, I got to say, wait a minute, I can't really bluff my way past a lot of these new guys because I get Coudray in the audience. Oh.
There is no blowing smoke with that. And I remember not only when I was asked to speak at Max Profit, and I followed Mark Coudray on stage, but scarier than that was in the audience was
me,
was
Scott Fresner, and Greg
Fresner,
all over on the side looking at you.
Greg Kitson, Lon Winters, and Mark Coudray. And then people I didn't know that were in there that I know, the guys from Zome were there who I didn't know. And I'm like, oh my stinking gosh. What am I doing up here? And you know what? You put on the big boy pants. Tom Rowan was there, who I had just met. And yeah, you put on the big boy pants. But a part of that too, while we all get nervous and stuff like that, because these are people we have watched over the years, the best part about it, I have never once been called down by anybody. We hold people up in our minds on their higher. And I have always been treated with the utmost respect. We've been able on things we don't disagree. Things none of us know everything. I know, Richard, you and I have a little bit closer relationship, and I tell the story where Richard has called me before and said, Alan, I was listening to this. Okay, now I'm reaching for the phone, and as the grandfather patting you on the hand, but pretty much going, what the hell were you thinking? But you know what? I have never been, called down by anybody. So let's talk about networking. It's not name dropping, but we're coming up to a show and there's going to be a lot of people there. We have given you our picks and seminars, but you know what? The best education is probably those face-to-face conversations. And Richard, you're going to be there. I'm going to be there. I know Lon Winters is going to be there. I'm not sure if Glenn Shaw's going to be there with Rico. He might. Ray Greenwood's going to be there. Charlie Talib is going to be there. Andy McDougall's going to be there printing posters. Everybody needs to go see Andy McDougall. What a great guy. If you see somebody you want to speak to that you've seen, you've never met, go up, introduce yourself. That's part of what shows are. Richard, would you agree?
Definitely. I'm going to the show for the networking alone. That to me, it's worthwhile. I haven't missed a Long Beach show in almost 40 years, except when I was sick or it was canceled.
Yeah. I go to a lot of them. There's been times, well, in Atlantic City, Richard had to take all my seminars when I was sick and couldn't make it. Um, but how many times, we do a program like this, or we're on a show or something like that, and people are going, the part I love about shows is when they're busy. The part I hate about them is we're busy, and how many people I miss meeting. And they'll text me and they'll go, I saw you talking to somebody. I didn't want to interrupt. Well, I'm always talking to somebody. And I remember at a show, it was a small one, a DAC show, Charlie Talib and I were just sitting there drinking coffee, and we were just talking, and some people came up and said, I just want to say hi. I know you guys are in a meeting. We weren't in a meeting. We were talking about like international travel spots, our favorite places to go. And they go, we know you guys and wanted to introduce us, say hi. And we're like, you're not interrupting us. And when I'm at a show, you can never interrupt me. If I'm talking on a business thing with somebody, I will always take the time to say, hey, thank you. I'm with somebody right now. I would love to meet you later. When can we meet? Come on by. Or give me, email me or call me anytime.
Maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Richard, you're the same way. And this isn't blowing our own horn. Marshall's there. That's what we do. And you know what? It could be another printer or somebody. I love just talking to people in line while getting coffee, or in the elevator chats on the way to the show. And you meet different printers and decorators from all over the country and the world. And don't miss that at this show.
I want everybody to think about what they might want to read. I am your librarian.
Yep.
So, don't hesitate. Be bold. Be brave. Call.
Got a couple things.
What you want to read.
Best ever tease. I'm back from New York and itching to print. All right, let's get printing. Let us know how we can help you. And that'd be great. Charles is there. Everyone wishes I was going to be at the show next week so they could meet me. Maybe next time. We do, Charles. Now I have met you, but you know what, Charles? How did we meet? At a SGI show, at a luncheon, and you were talking to somebody, and it was Brett Bowden. And I came in late, and Brett made fun of me, but he was talking to you and came over, and we got talking, and it was awesome. But that's what it is. So on there, Frank's going to be there. He just got back from PPAI, and the networking was fantastic. I can't wait for Long Beach next weekend. And that's great to hear, because you know what? The shows last year, we had some. They were okay. We were getting back. Pretty United was good for the people and all that, and I'm very excited for next week. So, Frank, I know you're going to be there. Everybody go by SNS, see Frank, introduce yourself. And, there is nobody that is scary. Lon Winters is one. I had a client one time, we were talking at Indy, and he said, yeah, I saw Lon Winters there. I'd love to meet him, but I just don't want to bother him. He seems busy. I'm like, oh, no way. Come on. Yeah, never do that. Everybody's approachable. There are no, what we talk about it, there are rock stars. There are no rock stars in this industry. And if somebody acts like that, then you don't need to meet them. It's not worth meeting. What do you think, Richard, about that?
The reason we're at the shows is to talk to people. Yep. Make friends.
Yep, absolutely. Well, man, Richard, for putting this in, we're kind of 4 minutes over time right now. I've
got one other thing I need to plug. I don't know if you.
Oh, do it. Yeah. Nope, you're right.
My friend Jeffrey Gittimer is doing a free seminar in 2 hours.
Yep.
At 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. It's at GittimerTraining.com. Selling in Tough Times. The free masterclass. Are you able to put that up on the screen? I sent that along.
I thought I did. I thought I commented it. I saved it. Let me.
If you go to GittimerTraining.com, it's in 2 hours. If you're seeing this with a
hold on.
With a recording, it may be you can still go, but I know that one of the things that comes up at almost all of the Shirt Lab things that we do has to do with different selling. And Jeffrey has been an ace salesman his entire life. And there it is right there on the screen. So it's a free master class, selling in tough times. I'll be there.
Jeffrey Gettimer did one of the Shirt Labs. I've had his book, The Little Black Book of Selling. Yeah. I got his last book here. It's still sitting here. I was reading called Just Get Shit Done.
Oh.
Yep. Sorry about that. But yeah.
The one that I like the most, is the early writings of Napoleon Hill. Oh, it doesn't show up on the green screen.
No.
It's called Truthful Living. And Jeffrey took all the earliest writings and conglomerated them and re-edited them into a book of his work. And I remember that when Jeffrey and I were reading these, it was like gold because we're reading it in his handwriting. It was on the original paper. Mm-hmm. It was an amazing. It was a tingling kind of a thing. And so this is not the title that we worked on this book, but Truthful Living. It's a big one for me.
Get that. So anytime you can get a free masterclass, on there, worth your time. So at 2 p.m. that's Eastern time, Richard?
Yeah.
2 p.m. Eastern time, right there. There's the
1
link.
hour. 1 hour from now, if you're live.
There's the link right there.
If not, I'm sure he'll be recording it, and it may end up on YouTube or whatever. So
wonderful. So on that note, Richard, we will see you next week. You're going to be hanging out at the Dalfit booth with our friend Mr. Mark Deal.
Mark and John Deal will be there. Yep.
I'm going to be at the Easy Way booth. We'll be showing the Blue Water machine. I know I don't think Mark Saldonic's going to be there, but GSG will be there. Make sure you stop by. When you stop by the GSG, if you stop by GSG booth for no other reason, tell them thank you so much for sponsoring us and that you heard about them from us. We do appreciate them on everything they do for us, and they're a great sponsor. It's been a great partnership with them. So
GSG is right across the aisle from M&R. You can't miss it.
Absolutely. And our good friend Peter Walsh will be there at M&R. They always have this. Sean says, what is this Blue Water thing? Blue Water is a auto reclaim. Come on by and take a look. Let me know if you have any questions. So, I know, Richard, you haven't seen one in person. And actually, this will be the first public showing the Blue Water auto reclaim. It'll be interesting. So, let me know if anybody wants to take a look and just see. It's some of the same, but a little different configuration. And
twice now you've said that you'd take me when you were going to go visit somebody, but you're just not really a good friend.
I'm a horrible friend. You know what? And but now you can see it next week. I will
hijack me to go to Chicago.
I will give you the private showing. There is another one going into Chicago here in a few months. There is one that there's two. One just was installed in Iowa, and another one going into Iowa. Our good friend Tom Brown has one. His should be in the month.
Right, that's right. I forgot.
So So very good. Mark says, I have my new M&R equipment be installed in an apps lab. You all have a great show. So Mark has the best job. Richard and I are jealous. He gets to play with new stuff. He gets to record things, and he's getting new toys in.
Doesn't really seem like work to me.
Yeah, he's getting paid too. So, wow. You know what? And he is the face of GSG in Screenprint now. So, doing a great job. So we will miss you next week, Mark. But cool. All right, everybody. That's about it. You have a great weekend. Be safe. We will not have a show next week.
Oh.
We are not doing it because of Long Beach, and we have tried to do it. We don't want to record it. And basically, Marshall and I are going to be too busy at the show with the time change is just it. But we will give you an incredible recap. There is the Shirt Lab Mastermind on Friday night. Richard, you're going to be there. I'm going to
Mhm.
be there. Charlie's going to be there. Mark Houdray. Who else? There's going to be a lot. It's going to be a good time. So we'll give an update on that and the show. So we will see you in 2 weeks. So everybody be safe. If you need us, contact us. Richard's easy by email. And Marshall, if you listen to this, good luck on moving. Congratulations on yours and your family's new home. I know it's been a long time coming. You're really looking forward to it. And we'll see you later, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.